Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 153 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I'm your host. The person that is not ready, apparently, I asked if he was ready. He said no. And is Countmer tonight. What the hell is a Countmer?
I just figured that, given how negative things have been lately, that you would need a reminder that when you're with me, you can count your blessings. And so given that that phrase is completely uncontroversial in every way, shape, and form, I decided to be Countmer.
Well,
today.
We'll get into that because I'm pretty sure that that's not true. At any rate, we're going to just skip the whole fucking what we've been doing in Flesh and Blood because it's not relevant to the conversation today because we're talking Worlds. And the World Championship weekend in Osaka just got over yesterday, like during the day for us. And tomorrow is elections in the United States, which for all of our international friends, you don't know what a fucking disaster the United States can be at times. And first off, Election Day is not a national holiday here. Second, there is at any, like the amount of the voting population, people that are eligible to vote in an election that actually cast a ballot is usually 70% or less.
And that's just eligibility, not counting like other factors as to whether or not they're going to actually do it. Because that's the other thing. It's not compulsory here in the States either, like it is in some places.
Right. So some people just decide that, this whole thing where we can elect leaders, not my jam. Let's do what anybody else tells me to do. Which is kind of why politics in America is the way it is, to be honest, and has gotten to be the shithole that it is, and why you have a 34-time felon that effectively gives slightly changed speeches from 1939 at rallies in Madison Square Garden in New York as somebody who very well could be the president-elect at the end of the night Wednesday. Enough dooming. But so let's talk our World Championship weekend, because it was, I don't know, Charmer, did you watch a bunch of it? Because I watched a ton.
I don't know that I could say that I watched a bunch of it. I watched as much as I could, given the other responsibilities that I had. So I'm still trying to play catch up, watch the top 8 stuff. The real big gap in my stuff right now is from Saturday. And that's just because I was out with Stark on Saturday. Unflesh and Blood related. There is a new set of Star Wars Unlimited that is launching, and Stark is playing both Flesh and Blood and Star Wars with me, and he really wanted to go to the pre-release. So that's what we were doing on Saturday. And I was trying to get updates and things like that while I was there, but it's very difficult, obviously, when you're not just playing the game in general to be on your phone, but also when it's like a pre-release and you have to, read stuff
right
and pay attention. Happy to report I did win the event, so I'm still not washed yet.
At least in Star Wars.
Yeah. But
really don't get to find out how washed you are until July in Vegas is the first real large scale Star Wars thing.
It will be their first true large scale event. Yeah. And that's their equivalent of their first Worlds. It's the Galactic Championship.
But it's open invite, correct? In this case,
this year is open invite. There is going to be a qualification system that they've already outlined going forward for future years, but for the first year, because it's kind of like a pilot run of their qualifying events leading up to it, they've decided to make this one an open event. And then if you win some of the events that would normally qualify you, instead you will get like a day one buy, because it's going to be a 3-day event. So yeah.
So at any rate, but this, we're a Flesh and Blood show theoretically, and I think I watched more coverage of this event than I have of any previous event. And
Really?
I'm typically pretty good about watching coverage, but I'll leave gaps. But in this case, I don't know. I was glued. I thought it was phenomenally produced. And obviously when you get Sam and Pankaj and Craig and Brian going on commentary, it's fantastic. They're all very good. And so coverage was phenomenally done. I liked how they were doing judge calls by snapping back to the booth rather than having the awkward lingering camera every time there was a judge call. And I thought that was very good, very well done that might've been an Ethan thing. Ethan, good job, great job as well. And so to me, I was very engaged by coverage in general, and I was rewarded because this is some of the best play as far as games I've seen ever in coverage of Flesh and Blood. And it seems like that I say that like that gets brought up a lot, where every event, it seems like it's almost like a new bar gets set, right? In this case, the bar started with the Pablo Yuki match, which people have been talking about nonstop for the last 3 days, because that's Flesh and Blood. Like, that's really the game in the most micro decision nutshell that you can possibly imagine. And also chat was interesting because so let's bounce to the top 8 really quick. The champion, our world champion, is Gregor Kowalski, playing CYB Enigma. So count your blessings, Enigma. And the rest of the top 8 was Mercy Bickle on Aurora, Sam Sutherland on Dash.io, Alan Lau on Dash.io, Valentin Mackel on 10K Enigma. So very different decks.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hamilton on CYB New, because why not? Rob Catton on Aurora, and Noah Begelman on Viserai. Now, the thing that is interesting here is that both Gregor Kowalski and Valentin Mackel are much, much more known for their Magic the Gathering prowess than Flesh and Blood. Greg is a well-known staple of the Magic the Gathering pro scene for many years. And so in chat, we had a ton of Magic players that didn't know anything about Flesh and Blood, asking tons of questions about the game. And it was really interesting to see their perspectives. You definitely had the doomers, and they're the Magic people who are like, oh, during that first match between Rob and Gregor's with in the quarterfinals, where it was a 90-minute Aurora versus Enigma match. Rob's game plan was great, but Amulet of Echoes was the MVP of that game, if that tells you anything about what's going on over here. Because Rob had pitch stacked perfectly to just, nuke from orbit, kill Gregor's. Mm-hmm. But in order to do it, he would have had to have played 2 Flicker Wisps in a turn. But Amulet of Echoes would have then made him discard the last 2 cards in his hand if he were to do it.
Right.
So he had to spread it out, which gave Greg time to find what he needed. And eventually Rob knew that he was just going to die to Spectral Shield every turn.
Right.
Until
you get
there's
loop.
Nothing left.
Yep.
He hit the loop. And I would like to point out that I did get on my Dark Horse one thing right. It was a person from Poland. And relatively unknown to Flesh and Blood, too. Polish national champion, I believe, at least once. But between him and Bartosz, it's one of the two. But definitely not on Osilio, though. Osilio did not have a good weekend.
No.
Just go ahead and put that baby to bed. But that game was two different master classes on two different heroes, and the Flesh and Blood people in the channel were vacillating between this game is incredible, which was actually my side of the ball, and ban Count Your Blessings tomorrow. Those were really the two sides that people were taking. And people are, and I'm not going to shit on anybody's opinion when it comes to that. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But it was a masterclass because Rob understood exactly what he had to do. And it was a masterclass because Gregor's obviously knew this matchup and knew their route to winning was pitch stacking that. And so he had Amulet of fucking Echoes in his list to not die to that.
Yeah. I think that, and I do think that, it's so funny because we're going to have a big discourse about Count Your Blessings, but I really do think that the Amulet of Echoes thing is such an interesting twist on the list, because when you consider what a lot of decks are going to do to try to counter it, it's going to be layering. And it's usually you trying to layer your most powerful effects, right? So like you talk about the double Flicker Wisp thing, makes perfect sense. You need that big turn. These are also turns that are significantly harder to do in a post book burning ban situation, right? We don't have double Art of War turns anymore, double Tome turns anymore. So it's all that much more important that you are trying to land your big plays. It just so happens in this instance it was Flicker Wisp, but I mean, even when you're looking at some of the other matchups, right? More traditional new lists. I say that because obviously Michael Hamilton brought a different version. But more traditional new lists are still in a similar situation where they're probably trying to set up like double Justinix or stuff like that to go over the top. And so understanding that, hey, the only way that I really lose is when they get to do their powerful thing twice is brilliant forethought. So, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And I, again, was, as soon as I saw the Amulet of Echoes, because he pitched it, and casters called it out immediately, and I was just like, oh, that's fucking smart. Oh no, that's a like a roadblock. So, and then he pitch stacked it along to go along with Rob's pitch stack, and I was just like, this is next level shit. So I'm the one in chat going, everybody's like, Rob's got this, he's going to be able to pop off, and I'm the one in chat going, no, I'm pretty sure the Enigma can't lose. From this spot. How does Enigma win from this spot? Well,
they just never lose. Like, that's it. And so it's very interesting. I will say, and I don't pretend to be the best Flesh and Blood player by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I do notice one of the things I very often see is like a misunderstanding of the Enigma matchup is, I can't tell you how many times, whether it's me watching people in chat or even just like talking to people at locals or whatever, where they talk about this idea of fatiguing Enigma. And I always have to remind them that, like, technically you can't really truly fatigue them in the traditional sense because they get the Spectral Shield loop. And people forget that part. And they forget that Enigma actually has a lot of inevitability in those endgame states. Because it's not like they look and they say, okay, she doesn't have a weapon, so I just have to survive. But they don't understand that she does have a weapon and also has damage prevention on her weapon. And that is a big difference when you are, because I was trying to explain to somebody why it can be difficult to fatigue Enigma even as an assassin player, because unless you're on specifically fatigue Arachne, where you have banished threats with your on hits, if you're just talking about new or even more traditional mid-range Uzuri, yes, you have the dagger, but the difference when you get to that endgame state is like you pitched a dagger, they make a shield on their turn that stops your dagger because the piercing doesn't matter, and then they make one and attack with it, right? Like they have that inevitability in a lot of matchups. So when you combine that with stuff like the Amulet of Echoes, which is already, it's a blue, doesn't even end your turn, it has go again, right? Does everything you want it to do. yes, it doesn't block, but you're playing Enigma. You're used to not blocking. Not only you're playing Enigma, you're playing Count Your Blessings. Like you're basically saying, I don't block anyway. I just really liked the inclusion. I think that might end up being the straw that potentially breaks the camel's back, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But it's weird because it's just another card from Everfest. And you and I are always saying, like, hey, what's this one weird card? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's from Everfest.
It's always from Everfest.
It's always from Everfest.
And in this case, it turned out to be just that we always talk about levels in the game. And the level that you have to be at to decide to play fucking Amulet of Echoes is in somewhere in the galaxy level. Like that's big ass brain. I thought so there was a couple of things that, you know, people definitely latched onto, and I don't blame them for this event of shit that went wrong, right? Or things that didn't look good.
Sure. And I think that's a much better way to say it. Because I don't I don't think some of these things are truly items that went wrong.
The dude bottoming the Phantasmaclasm off the combat chain.
Well, okay. I'm not talking about like just straight cheating. That is a different thing. I just meant I felt like the things that you were going to mention were the two most highly debated cards after this event, and I think that looks bad is a much better way to describe it personally. But
yeah, and I so. Count Your Blessings, and we're going to talk about really two cards, but we probably should be talking about four. But the two cards that we're talking about are Count Your Blessings and High Octane. Mm-hmm. So Count Your Blessings, we had contribute to multiple very long matches that felt like they were a slog. For lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But we're talking coming from Magic, this was nothing. This is Esper Bottle was this or Teachings or any of these fucking control decks from back in the day.
Like as somebody who played a lot of Snow White, like
Snow White, Death and Taxes, mono blue Drago. Any rate. If I hear, sometimes I'll wake up in a cold sweat after hearing Capsize with Buyback, but
yeah,
that's an icky ick. If you know, you know. And so I'm a little insulated to this from history, and there are ways around CYB. We've discussed that. Mercy had Poison in the Well in her list, and it didn't do what she needed it to do because one, Gregor's played around it the first time. And two, he realized that was the card in her arsenal on a pivotal turn so that he could command and conquer to get it out of her arsenal.
Right. And I would also say, just going a step further, my hot take has been for a bit, but I do not think Poison the Well is a good counter for Count Your Blessings. Personally. Sure. I don't run it in lists where I am planning on having a plan for Count Your Blessings. I don't run it. I'll say that. I do think that right now there are two ways to approach it. One is to not have a true answer for Count Your Blessings. It's just pack more damage and hope that you can race. Because I think some decks that really is the only answer that they have available that's viable. But in other lists, and I've talked about like Fatigue Arachne in the past, actually having a lot of potential options. And I've shared in our Discord that I was running like versions that were running Gravekeeping as well, and how outstanding it is because not only does it help you against Count Your Blessings, but it actually helps you in a lot of assassin games, ranger games. And this is something I want to speak to a bit because I did see a lot of the discourse on Reddit. I went to Reddit for you so that you didn't have to.
Okay.
There was a lot of discourse about how like it feels bad to play cards like Gravekeeping because they're only good in that matchup. And I think that is a misconception as somebody who has played with it. There's a lot of cards in other decks that you can get rid of, and it's a tangible payoff. So again, against rangers and assassins that are playing codexes, being able to get rid of their best attacks is still super relevant. Like the number of times that, you know, I've been able to hamstring somebody because, like, if you get rid of a leave no witnesses against a new, for example, and now the only thing they can bring back are their one attack stealth cards, but they're out of the attack reactions for the payoff, right? Because you're usually trying to end your turn with codex. That's super relevant. Same thing with rangers, right? Like if you are really worried about whether it's red in the ledger or certain other attacks, being able to get rid of those is also super relevant. So gravekeeping is not terrible, and it's also still just a 1 for 5. And like I've played worse cards in bad matchups. You know what I mean? Like the floor is, I think, higher than people give it credit for, but the ceiling is pretty high. And I do think that there are other ways that you can also still potentially target this as well. It does, I will admit, it does help that I play Assassin a lot, and that is a class that's kind of uniquely qualified for tackling Count Your Blessings. And that's why I also fully say, like, for some other classes, you just have to pretend that it, like, either isn't there or that they're going to draw the wrong half, right, at the wrong time, and then go from there. So yeah, like, I don't pretend like there's like an end all be all answer for Count Your Blessings, but I do think that it's not as bad as it sounds. And I think that a lot of the problem that people had is that I don't think it's a power level issue. I think it's a fun level issue. I think a lot of people don't like playing against it, even if they win, because it is a slog. And I think that's fair. I will say, This is going to be maybe a hot take. I actually think that it's a good thing that so many people are anti-Count Your Blessings, because to me, that says that we've had a lot of new players join Flesh and Blood. And why do I say that? Right. Because none of these people played against Fatigue Oldhim with Crown of Seeds. Because let me tell you, if you think 90-minute slogs are new to Count Your Blessings meta, that is not the case. No. Not even a little bit. And especially if you start talking about Oldhim mirrors, where you had game states where neither player could advance, and then you had to restart in a top 8 scenario because of draws. Because we know some people who've had to do that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this isn't new or unique, but the fact that we're seeing so much discourse, to me, says we have a lot of new players. So I think that's good. I also was very happy to see, as you were saying, so many new Magic players in the chat, but also, again, I went to Reddit, so you don't have to. A lot of the Reddit posts for the last 2.5 weeks have been, I'm a new player looking to get into the game. Where do I start as far as buying product? Or how do I upgrade this armory deck? Or what, how do I find my local stores? It's been a lot of new players asking questions, and I love that for the game. So those are my positives there. The last thing I want to say about Count Your Blessings, and then I'll get off my soapbox a bit, is that I don't think it's a power level issue. However, I don't think it is safe from adjustments either. And my reasoning for this is that I think that it's in a very similar situation to what we saw with Belittle and Minnowism. Not because... So Belittle and Minnowism, I actually think were a stronger power level that was affecting the meta at the time than CYB
because of Phi specifically.
Well, Phi, but like even before, like we saw it in Cheerios Briar, we saw Mara playing Dromai versions with it for a bit. Like,
sure.
So like But the reason that I think that it's a very similar situation is because it is much like with Belittle and Minnowism, and this was always my critique of that when it was still viable. It is a set of generic cards that you build your deck around, not generic cards that supplement your deck, right?
Right.
And so the problem is when you build around cards that are generics like this, you lose some of that class identity. And so the fact that we saw a CYB new also in the top 8, and we saw the Enigma, we have maybe not here, but like I know you and I have ran into the versions of Dash doing it, and
Teklo.
Yep. So we know that it's a thing that is already kind of permeating amongst all of the different control classes. I do think that if it gets adjusted, that actually might be the real reason, because you're losing a lot of class identity. And also, one of the other issues is that because it's not tied to any specific class identity, it also makes it that much harder when people are bringing cards in from their 80, right? Like you might be someone who's packing Gravekeeping, but you sit down across Dash and now you've got to flip a coin, right? Like, is this going to be, just old school pistol boost Dash? Is this going to be CYB Dash? It's the same thing with new, apparently, right? Like you sit down across a new. Yeah. Although I would argue you'd still want your Gravekeepings because of the Codex thing I outlined earlier. But anyway, I do think that just the fact that they are generics that you build your deck around as opposed to generics that supplement your class identity in some way could be the reason that it gets adjusted or hit somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, so couple of things. Yes, there were 2 CYB decks in the top 8. One Enigma, one new. There were more CYB decks than that in the event. So, right, because we know that. So there were 2 people with the foresight, and I would say also balls, to register Bravo Showstopper as their hero in Classic Constructed.
Yeah.
One of them did not do very well.
Mm-hmm.
The other one's named Cale McCreath.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Cale either went 9-1 or 10-0 on CYB Bravo. Now, if Cale had spent any time drafting, you would have put a second deck in the top 8, or a third CYB deck in the top 8. And
but see,
that can't be ignored.
It can't be ignored, but now
it's also Cale.
So I was just about to say, here's the problem that I have with this though, right? Like you're going to look at, let's just say Cale makes it, right? And you look at that and you're like, wow, there's 3 CYBs there across 3 different heroes. Clearly that's a problem. And I'm not saying that those are data points that should be ignored. I am, however, going to just point out that the 3 people that you are talking about are a world-class Magic player, a literal world champion in Michael Hamilton, and then Cale, who, if you are not familiar, is also a phenomenal player and a standout, control / fatigue / whatever you want to call it in Flesh and Blood standards player. So saying like the best players in the world are doing well isn't necessarily, I think, the best case against it, because again, as you said, a number of other people brought it. They didn't necessarily see the same performance. It's beatable. Like we've seen it not win. Like we just had a pro quest season, right? We didn't see it like sweep through and win an abnormal amount. We know that it's not something that snuck up just for Worlds. This has been talked about since the set launched. So yeah, like again, if anything, I do think that the fact that it is generic you build your deck around will be the biggest hit, but I don't think it is a power level issue. It's an enjoyment issue and a generic issue potentially.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And we're talking people that understand the fundamentals of game design and how to break things. Like really, or in Cale's case, he is potentially the single best one-trick pony in the world. Because if the card in front of him says Bravo Showstopper at the top, the rest kind of doesn't fucking matter. And it's just a code he's cracked. And he just continues to show up at events with Bravo, which is supposed to be not good. And then he'll casually, at worst, X2 with the deck because it's Cale. And I said this for probably going on, obviously going on 3 years at this point. If he just ever learned to draft,
he doesn't like it. I can't fault him. Like you got to do what you want to do.
I agree, but my take on CYB is this. We've talked about this concept before too, and to me, it's Kano. Just come prepared. And I understand that in results leading up to Worlds, the CYB decks had kind of disappeared from Premier events. And if I were sitting and looking at those results, that would tell me to expect CYB decks at Worlds. Because if people stopped playing it, they didn't stop playing it probably because it's bad when you're this close to the World Championships. They stopped playing it because they didn't want people to think it was good. And maybe that's my tinfoil hat brain, going nuts on it. I don't know. But
yeah, I think it's some of that. But I do also... I mean, I do also think it's another piece of the puzzle, though, too, right? Because unless you have a dedicated testing group or whatever, if you're somebody who, like, your prep is going to locals or just even going to a bunch of different events in your, greater area, again, some of the problem is that you might play games and depending on how the draw goes or whatever, might not even realize you're playing against a Count Your Blessings deck, or that you might feel like it didn't matter if you sideboarded versus it or not. Because you'll get you'll get like this false sense of security because sometimes you beat that deck not because of the Count Your Blessings portion. And then there's still that factor I was talking about, which is what do you board it if you have an anti Count Your Blessings package? What do you board it in against? And
right.
So I do think that ultimately that might just be enough where people said, hey, if I have no way of knowing for sure, then I'm just going to remove that decision tree from like stressing me out.
Understandable.
Right. And I think that's entirely viable for some people. And I went the other route. Right. So like the Arachne list that I had finally settled on was I'm just going to always run like the gravekeepings anyway, unless it was against like very specific classes. But like in most of the matchups, I had to just found other ways where I could utilize it and make it worth my time. And so to me, that was just all right. Like that's just the price of playing in the current meta.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And in my case, like the way that I built Aurora for the one time I got to play a CC event in this meta, I had a blue flex slot that was built into the deck. So even if I came up to a deck and I'm like, I don't know if this is CYB or not, but I have these 3 Poison the Wells, it doesn't matter if what this card is, it's meant to just be a blue. And so if it ends up that they don't have CYB, this is still a blue that I need for the deck because I'm built that way, right?
Yeah.
And that's just deck building a little bit, and that's different. But in this case, I'm still... If they decide next week, because we have a banned and restricted announcement next week, if they decide to ban or somehow restrict CYB next week, I'm not mad. I do hope in reading the reasoning for it that the reasoning is more along that line, that axis of it creates an experience that just isn't fun or engaging instead of power level reasons. Because I don't think it's a power level reason on the card. It's more of this creates slogs, and that might not be what they're looking for. Now let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's talk about high octane. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Sam Sutherland had decided that playing the all-in combo deck version of Dash.io was the thing to do. I can't say he's wrong because we watched him on camera ignite somebody by system resetting with high octanes and cerebellum processors and make 1 billion action points, play 1 billion cards, shoot a gun 8 times or some crazy fucking number, and then double max velocity them. It's just like, but what the fuck you gonna do at that point in time?
Yeah.
It was 100 plus damage. Interestingly enough, in the top 8 in the quarterfinals against Michael Hamilton, Michael was able to surgically extract the system resets out of Sam's deck on like turn 2. And Sam won anyway because he found a high octane turd that let him shoot the gun like 7 times and then also finish it off with a max velocity for, I think it was exacties close, right? I think it was within 2 points of life. And now watching that, it made me go, that might be too much. Like high octane started to feel like what during that dev talk with James and Brian, what they were talking about, those big degenerate turns.
I mean, those aren't even, they're more prevalent now, but they're not even new. If you've ever played against a max player who knows what they're doing, there's nothing like taking, 30 in one turn from a mechanoid. So high octane has always been able to abuse it. I think it's just more noticeable in a post like book burning era, because it's like the only card that still lets you fundamentally break one of the 2 tenets of the game, right? So obviously when they did the great book burning ban, they had talked about, the idea of you're supposed to have a 4-card hand. Now, obviously, we have the arsenal and we have some niche things here or there, but the idea is you want that tension around the 4 cards because that is key to the intended flesh and blood experience, right? The other intended bit is, for the most part, action points are supposed to be hard to come by. So, like, yes, there are cards with go again, but they usually have some sort of cost associated, right? Cards that have an attack value and go again are usually worth more in terms of cost, or they deal less damage, or there's a trade-off, right?
Right.
Yes, we have cards in the past that have allowed us to get extra action points, but they usually were cost intensive. Again, as somebody who's played a lot of Guardian, I've played my fair share of skippers, but, pitching a blue and activating them to get my second action point was a costly thing. High Octane draws a card and makes action points irrelevant.
Agreed.
Right? Like,
you just get more of them.
That's just what it does, essentially. So I would be incredibly surprised if it makes it through the next announcement.
I feel like, I feel like this is breaking the tenet they talked about a little bit. And that's the reasoning. Because it's nuts to watch. And maybe that's attractive on some level to players.
It is. And that's why we have a living legend format.
There you go. The last 2 things that I want to just kind of quick talk about in here, because we know this is going to be a long show anyway. There's a million fucking listener questions. What are we going to do?
Just not answer them.
No, that's not how we roll. You know that. Let's talk about Sink Below and Fate Foreseen.
Okay.
Do they need to go?
I personally do not think so.
Okay. I am with you. I also do not think so. I think it is worth thinking about. And
I think having the discussion is always fine. And there might be a world somewhere in the future where they need to go, right? I don't think that they need to be around necessarily forever. I don't think, just throwing this out here, I don't think that the game is in a good spot tomorrow if they go without addressing the hole that would be in their place. Because there's a lot. Now, granted, you have to like sometimes jump through hoops or whatever, but there's a fair number of like 0 for 4 go agains, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are, in fact, more of those than there are 0 for 4 defense reactions that
also
are generics.
Or 0 for 4 block cards.
Block cards in general, but it's specifically like defense reactions are even more at a premium because they're also like, there's a part of me that says like, yeah, let's get rid of them because I want to play Bravo again. Give me back my Dominate Crush effects, because if I don't have to worry about those, I've got a whole lot less to fear on that front.
Right.
But I just feel like So a lot of people are like, hey, you know, they're generic and, you know, they're in every list, which first of all, they're not in every list. And if they are truly in all of your lists you're building, you're probably building wrong. I do not mean that offensively, but not every hero wants to play them, right?
Right.
Are they in a lot of lists? Yes, because of the value that they provide. But also, like, we're talking about an 80 card list. And so let's just say hypothetically, because it's not even just these two. We also hear the other two that always come up are, of course, CNC and E-Strike. But again, E-Strike shouldn't be in every list. I would even argue CNC doesn't belong in every list. There's plenty of decks that I have played in the past that I don't think CNC belongs in. And there are decks that I think exist in the meta right now that should not be running CNC. So that being said, I think it's hyperbolic to say that you always run them. However, they are included a high number of times. But even if you take all of those, it is 12 cards out of your 80. And you're not even going to play them all in every matchup either. Right?
Sure.
So they are 12 cards in your 80 that might or might not come in. So I just don't think that is that big of a problem. I think it becomes more of a problem when it's those and a bunch of other generics. And again, so the difference, if you're also wondering like why I think, say, Count Your Blessings might be hit as a generic versus some of these, is that you don't build your deck around Sink Below, right? It doesn't change the way you play your hero. It doesn't, you know, warp your class identity. It's just a generic defense reaction. And do I think that it could go someday? Yes. And I think we might just get something in its place. Of the two, I think Sink Below is the biggest offender just because it helps fix hands, right? I think that's why even if you ever see people who only run one of them, they always pick Sink Below over Fate Foreseen because it's just a more reliable effect. But it's also the kind of effect that I like having in the game because it rewards good players. It's another micro decision to factor in. Do I want to send a card or not? If I do, am I looking for something? Am I getting rid of a clunky hand? Like there's times where it might be right to use Sink Below, even if it's not going to soak the full 4, but your potential payoff is that much higher if you find a card to complete the rest of your game plan for that particular turn, right? Like it is a skill testing card. And I don't think that we should be in the practice of like getting rid of those types of cards personally. Again, do I think it could be gone someday? But yes, but I don't think it needs to go now. And if it does go, then I think what you're going to see happen is that you're just going to see people start running some of the other like replacement effects in those classes. And maybe that's the argument for it. Maybe you want it to be a thing, but you know, we haven't got there yet. But like obviously Ira has finally hit her debut.
Oh, we're going to talk about this.
You know, got the you know the top 8 in the calling or whatever, and look, like there's a world that could exist where like we see Ninja Turtle Ira, you know, flick flacking again. And
well, I'm staring at it. But so like let's really quick just like let's move that direction, because I think the way that I feel about this is I'm okay with one of them going, either one, don't really care. And as long as classes have a pseudo-like replacement. So like in Ninja, that would be Flick Flack, right? In Earth, that would be Decompose. Or it would be a Rootbound Carapace, the Decompose one. Et cetera, right?
Right.
And so let's talk about the calling really quick, because this is fucking fascinating already.
Yeah.
And so it was won by Zen, so I was not far off of Zen winning something. In the top 8, we had an Aurora, we had an Ira, the Zen, an Azalea, 2 new, an Enigma, and a Dash. So the Zen list is pretty stock. There's not a whole lot in here that is super like techie, but Ira. Now, I'm going to read you the contents of this deck. And I want you to tell me what this sounds like to you. Okay, are you ready?
Oh yeah.
There are no yellows. We'll just start there.
I would not have predicted that there needed to be.
Band-Aid off. Okay. We have 3 Bittering Thorns. 3 Sensor,
Yep.
3 Command and Conquer,
Mm-hmm.
3 Enlightened Strike,
Mm-hmm.
2 Erase Face.
Before you go any further, let me just say Sensor is another very underappreciated card,
Oh,
by the
100%.
way.
Yeah.
I used to play it in Uzuri and I loved it. So
A blue 0 in hand with a Sensor for Ira is just so much value.
yeah.
3 Enlightened Strike, obviously.
Yep.
2 Erase Face,
Mhm.
might as well. 3 Fate Foreseen, couldn't have seen that coming. 3 Flick Flack in the reds.
Yep.
Obviously. 2 Give and Takes, that's a little different. But I get it because regrowing cards is, something this deck wants to do.
Oh, for sure.
And then 2 Red 100 wins. Sure.
Actually kind of surprised by that, but okay.
Yeah, like that one was just okay, I guess. I think that it plays into, it's a combo card for Flick Flack. And,
I mean, yeah.
Also a combo card.
I just thought, I'm going to be honest, I thought we were almost at the end of the actual reds.
No, we have a lot more.
Oh, okay.
3 Mauling Key.
Okay.
Which I found to be interesting, but it's a 1 for 5.
Right.
2 Oasis Respites.
Mm-hmm.
3 Pounding Gales. Are you ready for some fun?
Mm-hmm.
3 Razor Reflex.
Yeah.
Let's go get them. 3 Sink Belows. 3 Spinning Wheel Kicks.
Okay.
2 Weakest Links. And 3 Torna Tempos.
All right. So I have a better understanding of what their game plan is. They're slightly more aggressive. The Razor Reflexes is not a shock for me personally. When I very first started playing the game, one of the people that I play tested against was like a pretty hard, Ninja Turtle Katsu player at the time, but they ran Razor Reflex back then just because it was a great arsenal card, but also they just wanted that threat of it. Specifically, like in this list, it's actually going to get even more mileage because if you're running cards like Sensor, which again, I love that inclusion, it helps you guarantee your on hit, but also you can continue to go wide if you catch somebody off guard. But specifically, the big reason that my buddy ran it way back is that when you get to those endgame states, people are already like worried about Kodachi lock. So they kind of start shoring up their health at around like 5. And so sometimes, sometimes catching with that Razor Reflex on a Kodachi is enough to like get them into the lock. It's not always about getting lethal. You just want to get them to where the lethal is an inevitability. And so the Razor Reflexes were usually really good at that. But hearing the rest sounded like a bunch of 1 for 5s that also have combo. So again, as you were saying, right, you want that. I pitch a blue, it's Kodachi 1 for 5. I have to block with it, block with extra value off of Flick Flack, searchable.
Mm-hmm. And then Give and Take I think is brilliant too, because if you get to that low down situation you're talking about where they have to block the give or take or the give and take, you just get cards back. All right. So let's go into the blues really quick here. There's 1 blue 2 of, and that's Flick Flack.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones are they're all 3 ofs: Crane Dance, Dishonor, Fine Center, Fluster Fist, Rising Knee Thrust, Warmonger's Diplomacy, and Winds of Eternity. What do these all have in common?
All of them, but Warmongers have combo.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, they're all blue block
actually,
threes.
that actually might be true. Hold on. You're right. They do all have combo.
Yeah, all of them but Warmonger should have combo. And then the rest is that they're also blue block 3s.
They're all blue 0 block 3s.
Well, yeah, blue 0 block 3s for the Kodachi. But yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's just the perfect card, right?
Yep.
So this is the most generic fucking list you can ever find in Flesh and Blood is an Ira list.
Yep.
Because the only synergies in this deck are, does it Kodachi? And then can I play this for extra value after Kodachi?
Or Flick Flack.
Or Flick Flack, yeah. Because CNC for 7 is still a thing to fuck people.
Yep.
One of my favorite things to fuck people. And I looked at this list and I just went, all right, I see what you're doing. You are this is as consistent as possible.
Yeah,
at
I love
everything.
everything about this list. I will, however, say if it was me building this list, I would purposefully make it worse, mind you, and I fully accept that mine would be worse as a result. But the one change that I would make, it's still a 0 cost blue. It only blocks for 2 though. But the card that I would not be able to help myself run would also be Lunging Press. Because even with your CNCs for 7, if they are like 2 3s and armor, I just want to be able to gotcha.
Just poke them.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
But I'm also like, I'll admit that I'm somebody who used to play a couple of those in my Bravo lists.
Sure.
Just because, again, sometimes you just don't expect the attack reaction out of a Bravo, and that everyone does the math to 1, and then you're just like,
Flick Flack also only blocks 2, so it could be you could pull out the blue Flick Flacks with Lunging Presses.
I mean, you could, but the Flick Flacks, the blue Flick Flacks are so, like, I think heinous in this current meta because they are the kind of block 2 that you want, because they threaten to be still a block 4 or a block 6 or right. So, specifically with Aurora running rampant, it's the perfect thing where you're like, okay, I will, either flick flack your opener, or I can flick flack your, if you start with an opener and I block that clean and then you follow that with your weapon, I flick flack that for 2. And now whatever big thing you were waiting for, I can block for 5, out. Like, so what do you do? Like, do you make them use it? Do you end your turn if you're the Aurora player? It's just, it feels bad all around. So
I can't wait for the heavy sighs that I hear whenever I go back to hearing Kodachi for 1. Yep, take 1. Okay. Kodachi for 2. Yep, take 2. Attack with give and take. Threaten mass trigger.
Oh, so that's something that even that's why I love the addition of give and take as well. Again, this is a card I have played in Uzuri in the past, and I really liked what it was doing for me. But it's extra heinous in Ira because you can do Kodachi for 1, give and take for 4, and mess with their breakpoints, right? And then come back to your Kodachi as an ender if you really want, or do something else. Give and take is actually kind of fantastic with Ira.
Pretty fucking cheeky, not gonna lie. But I was just stoked because Ira first weekend out, and Ira's just like, yeah, put me on the board. Yeah, it's like, oh shit.
I am not surprised by that though, because she has a long list of loyal followers that have been dying for an adult one to show up, and this, like, of all the places, like, this is the perfect debut stage for her. Kudos.
There was also Living Legend Battle Harden, won by our good friend Peter Budensick.
Blasting.
Kano. Just blasting. If you're gonna live some legends, just fucking blast. And so Peter is a Battle Harden master, by the way. He is this, I think it's his 3rd or 4th win. But so the top 8 here, and this is Living Legend, mind you, and I think this is very interesting. The top 8 was 1 Viserai, 1 Kano, 1 Aurora, 1 Dash.io, 1 Starvo, 1 Briar, 1 Oldham, and 1 Chain. That's 8 different heroes. And in reality, 5 different archetypes.
I'm kind of surprised we don't see, like, Peter is right in that same vein, but I'm kind of surprised we didn't see Majin win this to further my conspiracy theory, right? Because you and I always say that, like, he likes to take second so that Kano doesn't get LL points.
But if this is an LL, he wouldn't get LL
Living
points.
Legend, yeah. So
you just win it. It's fine. Of course. But this is like, so the question that I put here in the notes was, is this the healthiest meta in Flesh and Blood right now? It kind of looks like it.
I don't know if it's the healthiest. I do think that it is perhaps the most wide open, and I could not be any more excited and kind of juiced for the Living
For
Legend
Chicago?
calling in Chicago as a result. And the reason I say it's the most wide open is that, like, yes, a lot of these are known entities, but they don't get the same level of like testing and scrutiny on the same scale. And there's also, like I said, in my opinion, I think a lot of newer players. And so some of that knowledge gap is not like closed yet when you start talking about some of those heroes that hit Living Legend pretty soon. So yeah, I do think that it's just going to be a really cool format because there are so many decks right now that are capable of doing like some pretty crazy things. There's a lot of decks that I think counter some of the other crazy decks pretty well. And I also, so another neat thing about current Living Legend, now that we've gotten rid of the Aether Vein nonsense, is that, you know, you were mentioning it before. It's not even just that there's a number of heroes. There's a lot of different play styles as well. And I think that might be the most exciting bit, right? It's not just like, you know, each aggro deck is the, you know, just a different bit of the, you know, different flavor of the same thing, right? Like there's a big difference between, you know, Chain and Aurora, for example. Yes, they're both rune blades, but they're totally different, right?
Yeah, that is not. See, that I would say that Dash and Chain are closer to the same archetype than Aurora and Chain. I see that they are similar to me, and that they are heavily oriented towards a big turn, playing cards off the top of their deck. You know, with Dash, it's playing off the top of the deck with items. With Chain, it's Banish Zone, and so I see those as similar archetypes. I see Viserai and Aurora as similar archetypes. I see Kano stands alone. Starvel Oldhim don't share much in common.
Which is so weird if you're not somebody who played during that period. Because, like, you're looking at them, they're both Guardians. They both have Earth. They both have Ice.
Starvo and Briar have a ton in common.
Yeah, Starvo and Briar are much closer together than Starvo and Oldhim are.
Yeah. And so that's why I said like 5 different archetypes and that's always funny to me is people are like, well, Starvo's a Guardian in fucking name only.
Yeah.
Is Starvo a Guardian?
He's an aggro deck that plays Guardian cards. That's what he is.
Correct. And probably the best aggro deck that the game has ever seen.
Yeah. Briar in this list is half Aurora, half Starvo. That's what I see when I see Briar on this list. It's like the middle of the two.
Okay, I got a Josh Scott story in here that I can't reveal, but I will talk to you about it later. He's just sent something that I thought was amazing. But okay, that's going to be fun for the next time Josh is on the show. So spoiler for people out there, the next time that Josh is on the show, he's already saying right now might be a good story to tell next time I'm on. So
okay,
you're going to get a fucking treat the next time Josh is on the show. He's always a treat, but this next level treat. Yeah, I'm gonna go play Briar in Chicago. I'm 90% locked. I just don't know how I want the list to look yet. And I don't know what could knock me off that right now. And I mean I love playing Starvo too. So
I love playing Starvo and I love playing Chain. So for me,
love playing Chain.
Yeah, for me, it's between those two. Just because I haven't had a chance to play either of them in a really long time. I'm leaning toward Starvo. Just because, like, I really miss Withering Whale, but...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, you mean Winter's Whale, but I get it.
No, I mean, it makes my opponents wither whenever
It does, actually. But... I just want to give a special congratulations out to Team Romania for winning the World Team Cup. That's tremendous. I mean, that's an insane competition in there and way to pull it off. Hopefully you guys can run it back next year. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see, you know, different countries come out and just sort of show that the ones that we see all the time aren't the only countries that play Flesh and Blood at a high level. And so I'm very, you know, I was excited to see it. I was rooting for you guys. And yeah, congratulations. Like, honestly, if you listen to this show, I know we actually have listeners in Romania. So yeah, if you guys listen, congrats. You know, big congratulations. That's a huge thing. Moving on, we're going to talk about the keynote, and there's stuff to talk about.
Okay.
And we're an hour in, so we are fucked for time.
Oh, no, we'll fly through the rest of this pretty quick. I promise.
I don't believe you.
It'll be faster than you think.
Will it now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. So OP roadmap, we do have skirmish seasons in March, August, and November of next year. ProQuest seasons are in April and October, with RTN season in February. So pretty standard pretty similar to what we saw in 2024. Blitz changes. This is actually something that I was a little caught off guard by. So it's now 1,000 points in Blitz to LL, which that's probably a good thing considering. All current heroes have their points doubled. So whatever their point total was has been doubled, except Zen. Zen stays at 505 and moves back into Blitz. So Zen is back to being Blitz legal.
Which makes Stark very happy.
Well, at least Stark's happy. At least somebody's happy about this. I think there's actually quite a few people happy about this, to be honest. I think it's a good move. There was with the problem cards being gone from Blitz now, then I think this is completely reasonable. And then we knew about this. This was sort of teased with James and Brian's discussion, but each seasonal program now will award a fixed number of points. So what that does is, so ProQuest seasons will have X number of points available total. And so we might actually see a world now where you don't get assigned what type of ProQuest to run. Instead, you have the option, if you're given a ProQuest, to run CC or draft versus being told one way or the other what you get to run, because it's not increasing the points given. It just divides them out differently to each event.
Right.
Yep. So I think that those are all good changes personally. It does make less guesswork for players when they're like, oh, I'd love to be able to play this deck, but if it wins, 50% of ProQuests, I'm screwed, and now that might not be the case. So that does make things a little easier there. Worlds. So the World Tour is now a thing. So Worlds will be in the United States. So we get a US Worlds. We don't know where yet. The 2 Pro Tours are in London, which we already knew, and then 1 in Asia Pacific.
Man, I can't wait to go to Worlds Detroit.
Worlds Detroit would actually be kind of fun.
It's a better city than people give it credit for.
I also think that Detroit style pizza is the superior pizza.
It really is. And I know that I'm supposed to say that because I'm a homer, but
I'm Iowa, so I'm like in between it all. There's not there's really no game. I have no skin in the game over the pizza argument. But
so here's how I knew that, like, for me, when you talk about Americanized pizza, that I really love the Detroit style. So obviously went on that trip to Italy with the family, had some ups, had some downs, but I definitely ate some pizza, and all the pizza that I had in Italy was phenomenal. But I remember about halfway through thinking to myself, like, I could eat this and the only thing I would miss would be like my deep dish Detroit style. Right? Like, it's not that I don't mind Chicago style, but to me, that's more like a pie than a pizza. I don't mind like New York style stuff, but like if I had the choice between like that and what I was eating in Italy and I never got it again, like it wouldn't bother me, but like I would miss there's just something about that, like pan
the caramelized,
deep.
the caramelized cheese to the edge, the crisp at the back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sight. I would be 100% okay with Worlds Detroit at that point, because I would just eat Detroit style deep dish every fucking day.
That being said, as much as I want some major event to be in Detroit because I think the city deserves it and it's a cool spot, I will go my early prediction based on absolutely zero information. I guess maybe it's less prediction and more wishful thinking. I think that it would be really cool to do a Denver because it's a very easy central flight hub. As far as like getting East Coast and West Coast involved, it's a very cool city. A lot of things to do around that time of year, right? Like it's not full winter, but there's still like, I think that if it's not East Coast, like, cause we had the one on the West Coast, right? So East Coast would make sense, but if it's not East Coast, I think that something like Denver would make sense.
I think it'll be Vegas. It's such an easy town.
I know.
I just put something in. Like it just makes sense to me. And I know that a lot of people would be like, Vegas again, but there's a lot of people outside this country being like, oh, fuck Vegas, you know?
Yeah, I know.
And quite honestly, the last big event in Vegas was Uprising premiere, wasn't it? So that was a couple of years ago.
No, wasn't there something?
Oh, there was Nationals last year, right? US Nats was in Vegas in 2023, right? That sounds right.
Yeah, I think so.
Because like the three events I'm thinking of that were in Vegas were the Aria World Premiere, the Uprising World Premiere, and I think 2023 US Nats.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Nationals Las Vegas 2023. Yeah, I was gonna say I remembered something after Uprising. Uprising
so
was the premiere, but
yeah, so it'd have been 2 years.
Well, I mean, there's
at that point.
There's like isn't there like a Battle Hardened that was just there this year?
Yeah, but I mean, it was Battle Hardens are a little bit different. I mean, like they don't quite have the glow.
Well,
of some of these
sure,
other
there's
events.
that, but listen, I love LSS and I only like to like mention the good stuff, and I might be misremembering this, so please stop me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it was either at that Vegas event or it might have been at one of the DreamHack events, but I remember specifically this past year there was some Flesh and Blood event that like was at either some sort of event or convention that not a lot of people went to because they didn't know about it. So it had like a low turnout, but I only remember the story because I feel like Brody showed up or something anyway because he knows where every event is.
Yeah, I think that was Vegas.
It was either Vegas or it was like DreamHack.
I think it was
Atlanta.
I think it was Atlanta. I think. Because I think it was a DreamHack. I think
there was a DreamHack Atlanta event, but I also
it might have been
like
Texas. It might have been Dallas,
or maybe it was DreamHack Dallas. Yeah, that would make sense why Brody showed up. Anyway,
well, you know, he would have shown up if it was.
I just hope it's not Dallas. Let me just say that I've been to more than a couple Flesh and Blood events in Dallas and more than a couple other events in Dallas, and I'm just not a fan.
No, DFW is.
I had fun, but I didn't have fun because of the city. I had fun because of the Flesh and Blood community. Yeah.
There will be 60 Battle Hardens next year, 22 callings, which is, you know, almost 2 a month, and 50 countries will have national championships. So good numbers. I like to see the growth. That's always a good sign. We now also have Player of the Year for Brody to win. So at least, you know, there's something else for Brody now. So you earn points at the beginning of battle, starting with, I believe, this weekend at Battle Hardened Hiroshima, and prize pool of $100,000. And so, we're gonna have a Player of the Year, and then also we had Battle Hardens announced for Hong Kong, Atlanta, Toronto, Portland, and Charlotte, and the callings that were announced for the first part of the year were in Prague, Memphis, Christchurch. We'll come back to that. Kobe and Sao Paulo. Christchurch is Josh Scott territory.
Yeah.
Should we go to Christchurch? I think it's in February though. Like it's gonna be real fucking hard.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I have 2 issues here. One, if I was taking any like extended long trip in the near future that was Flesh and Blood related, it would be Prague. Just full stop.
Sure.
It's a city that I really, really, really want to go to, and it will be the world premiere of a set that I am really, 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 really excited for. So that would be my choice. The other problem that I have just with any of the potential Flesh and Blood events in New Zealand is that I don't think I would come home. And I know that they frown on illegal immigration there in New Zealand, but I think you would have to deport me.
Yeah, I'm probably in that same boat, honestly. Okay. Well, we have the product release calendar. God, you made me depressed now. But the product release calendar. We have January and June sets that were announced. There'll probably be a fall set as well. There almost always is. We have Armory decks in March, April, May, and July. Guardian Mastery Pack got pushed out to August. So I think they were a little scared of Jarl support, maybe. We do know the hero in that set is Valda, by the way, is the new adult Guardian hero in the Guardian Mastery Pack. Because they do have the product. Mm-hmm. They had it on display at Worlds. And then there is Mastery Pack Archive for Jarl in Japan only, coming out at the end of December. So lots of product to look forward to as well, including the next set. We got our we got to know what the next set is. It is called The Hunted. We're going back to Volcor. The world premiere is in Prague, as Charmer pointed out. That's on January 17th with pre-releases on the 24th and release on the 31st. And now we're going to get into some shit here. So let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aids. We're going to rip a couple Band-Aids off. First off, new heroes. We're going to start with the new heroes. So Syndra, value member of the Patreon, or Drakaev Retribution, whichever one you want to call Syndra, is the new Royal Draconic Ninja, which is a lot of things.
Yeah.
Then we have Fang, Drakaev Blades, Royal Draconic Warrior. Now, oddly enough, these are both dagger-based. That's not so new for ninjas necessarily, and not necessarily with warriors either. But not being sword-based is a choice. And then also we have Arachne, and Arachne for new heroes. So that's 6 Arachnes.
Mm-hmm.
I have one right here. There's an Arachne. See, Arachne. And now, Charmer, if anybody didn't know listening to the show, is an Arachne simp.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Derek thinks that Arachne is the best character in the game.
No, that's tough.
You do have some Uzuri simp in you.
I have a lot of Uzuri simp in me too.
You always drift back to Arachne.
I think part of the reason that I drift back to Arachne is that it was the first assassin, right? So
sure,
there's some nostalgia there, and of the assassins, what Arachne does, I think, is still very unique compared to the others. I don't know. It's
that hasn't
tough.
Changed.
No, it hasn't changed.
Because why the fuck would it at this point? And so with Arachne, you have. I'm going to see if I can read these in this tiny ass picture. Oh, I got to go find it still. Why am I bad at this? Okay, so I need to zoom in like 1,000,000%. So hold on.
Enhance.
Oh, no. Well, I fucked this all the way up already.
Looks like round trip flights from Detroit to Prague are $800 right now.
Yeah, that's about what I was seeing from Des Moines.
If anybody wants to start a GoFundMe for me to go and die.
Why would you die?
I don't experience joy like at all in my life, and so to be at a world premiere with all of this Arachne love, like, You better
Yeah,
send
that's
me with
fair.
a pacemaker pre-installed. That's all I'm saying.
So the ones I can see here are Arachne Black Widow, Arachne Orb Weaver, Arachne Trapdoor.
Yeah, they're all named after spiders with the exception of the one that you get, which, so there's Slipped Through the Cracks, which is the adult version of solitary confinement.
Right, yep.
But the others are
And-
named after different spiders.
Yes. And so this is interesting to have 6 versions of a hero in a set. And we don't know how this plays out. Arachne Slipped Through the Cracks, by the way, has numbers in the name.
Yes.
We know what that does.
It wins games.
Wins games. That's right. So, Derek, what do we do with these 6 Arachnes?
So it's interesting, right? Because I think that 2 of them are going to be new, young, and adult versions. So I think that's 4 of the 6, right?
Okay.
And the reason that I suspect that is because in some of the marketing stuff, they have shown the Blitz box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, the Blitz box looks like outstanding as well. And I'm sure I will buy that the same way I've bought all of the other ones because, again, I use those to play with Stark. But in the marketing, I remember specifically there was the 1 warrior, the 1 ninja, and then 2 question marks, right? And so if I say to myself, okay, if they're not showing those, it's going to be new. We've only seen Arachne through as the other, potential character through the marketing. So I suspect it's like 2 young versions of Arachne, perhaps different forms, and then either those 2 can then become different. So, because we've got the 4 spiders, right? So what if it's like 2 young versions and then each of them can have like 2 varying adult versions? Or it might be 2 and 2, and then each one has a demi-hero potentially as well. But this, like, I think it starts whatever this tree blossoms to. If you're listening, you can't see I'm doing this like stuff with my hands very purposefully.
It's very animated, yeah.
But like whatever it blossoms to, I think the root of it, if you will, is like it's going to be 2, I suspect anyway, young versions of Arachne, and then we're going to have either adult versions and then demi-heroes for each, or it might just be that they age into or evolve into, if you want to think about Arachne as like a spider Pokemon, right? Arachne is Eevee, and sometimes you become a trapdoor, and sometimes you become a Black Widow, and sometimes you become an Orb Weaver, that sort of thing. So that's my suspicion. Obviously, we just don't have enough to go on, but I think that the key is the Blitz deck having the 2 question marks in that package marketing.
Now, I think that makes some sense. I also think that it very easily could be an Arachne and a Dromai.
So it has crossed my mind. It could very well be like they sneak in a Dromai. The other thing that crossed my mind is that they could sneak in a new Emperor, right? Obviously, the storyline, if you're not
Empress
familiar,
Dromai was what I was going with. But...
Well, yeah, it could be Empress Dromai as well. Maybe that's it. But like the storyline, if you will, is that Arachne killed the Emperor, right? And so this is the site is called The Hunted, and it's got we've already seen through some of the promotional stuff. There's a mechanic called Marked that they're introducing. There's also like a Fealty mechanic, and so if you can imagine, essentially. The Emperor Volcor is dead, and so now they're hunting the person who did it, and that's Arachne. And so you're going to have people who have fealty or loyalty to the Empire still, and then you're going to have people like Arachne who are marked. But if the Emperor is dead, you have to have somebody who assumes the mantle or the leadership role, right? So given that we see Royal come back here, it would not surprise me if we maybe get a new Emperor, not like a new version of the Emperor that's now dead, but just like a replacement, right? So it could be Dromai, or it could be a friend. So the other thing that crossed my mind is that Obviously, stealth is going to be a mechanic in this set, and Arachne is going to be a thing. And so we know that Arachne in the lore isn't like a lone wolf, right? They don't work alone. So it's entirely possible that maybe we just get another new assassin hero, or maybe it'll be another class or a different class that also utilizes the stealth mechanic, right? Because the interesting thing is, while stealth has only appeared on assassin cards, it is still just a keyword like any other. And so we could have like a ninja crossover, right? Like we have the royal ninja, but what if we, also get a ninja that starts using stealth, because that's very on theme. So who knows?
Yeah, I think the demi-hero aspect of it is the most likely thing in my mind, that there's a way to either change Arachne during the game, or you're allowed to have X number of Arachne in your inventory, and you choose one at the beginning of each game, so you can just change Arachne's face during the tournament.
So, it's funny you mentioned that. And I will go on record right now saying, if that ends up being it, then I will fall in love with Brian even more. Because before I became gravely ill on my trip, when we were walking around Venice, took this photo, and I will describe it for our audio listeners here, right? But this was a photo of a Venetian mask. Mm-hmm. And I was strolling through Venice, and I saw this, and, naturally, when I'm on a, wonderful, like, idyllic vacation with my family, I'm thinking about Flesh and Blood, right? So I saw that mask, and I took that photo as like an inspiration thing, because I wanted to talk about it at some point in the future, because, we occasionally get listener questions about, like, what are future either classes or ideas we'd like to see. I liked the idea because the assassins, very frequently for their headpiece are wearing masks. I was like, what if we had almost like a jester themed assassin with Venetian mask themes, and they literally, happy face, sad face, whatever, change their mask, if you will, or change their face to match different identities. And so if they essentially are going to do that same thing, but with these different versions of Arachne, then I'm all in, because I was already thinking about different ways you could do that mechanically when I was strolling through Venice. So,
yeah, I'm interested. Maybe we can. You never know. Like, we are coming up on episode 156. Maybe somebody wants to come on our show and tell us. That'd be great. But
yeah, that'd be awesome.
So marked is a new mechanic that does affect some cards. Fealty is a token. So it's a token aura that says instant destroy this. Next card you play this turn is Draconic. You can and then it destroys at the end of the turn if you haven't created a Fealty or played a Draconic card. They play into a lot of different cards. So examples, there are quite a few cards that are spoiled out here. So being marked is, like Proclaim Vengeance is a 0-cost Draconic instant. That's just mark target opposing hero. If that hero is Arachne, gain a resource. Because, reasons. That does have Dromite text on it too, which is interesting. And then some of these things are as simple as when if the target is like, when this attacks a marked hero, create a Fealty token. It's a 0/4 block 3 called For the Drakai. So there are cards that do that.
Can I just say, Tomaz crushed the art on Art of the Dragon Blood.
Oh yeah, Art of Dragon Fire. So are you doing Art of the Dragon Claw?
No, Art of the Dragon Blood.
Art of the Dragon Scale. Oh, Blood.
Yes. If you've not seen that one, I will link it to you.
I have not seen that
real quick. It's also it's like on their website, so I'm not sharing something that's been like leaked or anything, because I never do that. But when I saw this, and it's literally like dragon art that's like done in blood in the background, but still like I was like, oh man, what a
Yeah,
killer piece of art.
This is probably the card that I went what the fuck the hardest at, because it's the one that it just says it's a 0/4 block 3 that when this attacks, if it is draconic, it's not draconic by nature.
Right. So this is where the fealty token comes into play.
It gets go again, and the next 3 draconic cards you play this turn cost 1 resource less. So, okay. That gets scary real fast. We talked about Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, which is Chaos Assassin Hero. And that is important, I'm sure. And the first attack with Stealth each turn gets go again, which is literally just Arachne Solitary Confinement's text. Well, almost. Arachne Solitary Confinement's text says your first attack with Stealth each turn gets go again. Arachne Slip Through the Cracks says the first attack with Stealth each turn gets go again. And I'm sure the chaos mechanic plays into why there are 6 fucking Arachnes. 7 with Slip Through the Cracks, technically. We don't know the hero text on Syndra or Fang yet.
We've seen the Marvel art, though, which is, again, just
baller.
Fantastic.
And we don't actually see the artist's name on it. Interesting. We do have some fun. And I don't even know how to really talk about these, because to me it was just like, okay, what? All right, fine. So you have 3 warrior auras: flurry stance, agility stance, and power stance. If you put them all together, it's blood on her hands. Like literally, it's blood on her hands. It's 0 at the start of your turn. Destroy this, and you may attack with each. But these are for daggers only. With each dagger, you control an additional time. Agility stance, the start of your turn, destroy this, and your dagger attacks get go again. Power stance, destroy this, and your dagger attacks get +1. The card that I'm excited for is a warrior attack reaction called Jagged Edge, where this art is insane. Card's
really good, but also, again, art is phenomenal because of the point of view. It looks like you are the one getting the Jagged Edge.
Mm-hmm. And this is a 1 cost warrior attack reaction. Target weapon attack this gets +3, and damage this would deal can't be prevented. That Enigma problem starts to get a little bit easier to solve for things not called Dorinthia, because Dorinthia already has Chorus of Iron Song. But this just turns into okay, we have ways to get through Enigma. I think also of note are Tarantula Toxin.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to love this card. I'm going to let you take the helm on this one.
Well, I love this because I love during spoiler season whenever we get some sort of like Chekhov's gun sort of thing where it's hinting at something we haven't seen before. And that's what this does. So we can now speculate wildly. Tarantula Toxin, at least the one that was spoiled, is a 0 cost red pitch. It does block for 3, and it's assassin attack reaction, and you choose one or both, and that's super key. It says target dagger attack gets +3 attack. And the second bullet point is target card defending an attack with stealth gets -3 defense this turn. And the reason that's important is because up until now, your daggers have not had ways to gain stealth. And so I don't know if that means we're going to get a dagger that has stealth that will be specific to our new Arachnes, or if there will be cards much like how we're seeing with the Fealty, where you can give future things the draconic trait. We might also see something on the assassin side where you can give, your next attack might gain stealth. And so then if you swing with a dagger, it now is a stealth dagger. Who knows? But either way, the wording on that is already implying something that we have not seen possible to date.
Also remember that equipment are defending cards.
Yeah, so it's as good as shred, right?
Yeah.
Like that is very, very good.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible in general. And also being a block 3 reaction is a big deal, and for those decks too that want it. The other one I wanted to point out is this one's I'm sad that this one is a draconic warrior attack reaction, but it is. And this is Long Whisker Loyalty. For each Draconic Chain Link you control, choose one, which leads me to believe we'll have Draconic Daggers at some point in time. But its target dagger attack gets +2. You may attack with target dagger an additional time this turn. The next time target dagger hits a hero this turn, mark them. So all just kind of a good thing where it's if your modes are just, it's a +2 and attack additional time for 0. If you played, a Draconic, if you attacked with a Draconic Dagger plus played a Draconic, in front of it, that's pretty good. And the fealties do say the next card becomes Draconic. So I feel like the daggers for Fang will be Draconic. That is what that leads me to believe.
Yeah. So other things that I've been thinking about quite a bit with this potential set, Stealth very well could cross class lines for the first time, but so could contracts.
Yep. Because there are contract cards.
So there are contract cards that were already spoiled, and while they are still just on assassin cards so far, I was very keenly aware that both of the ones that were spoiled were you are contracted to hit a marked hero. And so then I was like, okay, well, if marked is going to be a big thing, obviously, if the entire theme is they're supposed to be hunting Arachne, well, Arachne's going to get marked. We've already seen a card that gives you an additional payoff if you mark Arachne, so they have to have some sort of payoff. So they could also have their own contracts or their own other on hits, but I expect that to be, a big part of the set. And the other thing that I've kind of been thinking about is that Fi could be a really big beneficiary because, you were talking about Long Whisker loyalty and the fact that we might be getting Draconic Daggers, right? Fi, we've seen versions of Fi in the past that were running Kodachis anyway. If Fi ends up with any sort of reliable way to extend the Draconic Chain Links with daggers, he could very well get, much the same way Viscera got a lot of help with this Rosetta set. He could kind of get the same treatment when this launches.
Yeah, I think that's already kind of true. Reading some of these cards, because there are already cards that are well, I think Arachne may actually just play that. Because why wouldn't they? And then, Art of the Dragon Scale is a 1-for-5 block 3 ninja attack, so a good chain ender. When this attacks, if it's Draconic, it gets, when this hits a hero, put a -1 counter on equipment they control. If it has 0 defense, destroy it. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Art of the Dragon Fire literally seems fire, because that's a 1-for-7 if it's a Draconic.
1-for-7. Yeah. And again, another insanely good chain ender. These are all Snapdragon Scalers targets too. So,
or Razor Reflex targets.
Oh God, please don't get me so excited, because I love Razor Reflexing people. They're also randomly they are Ancestral Empowerment targets. Just fuck it, pump them and draw a card. Yeah. So this is going to be a very interesting spoiler season, as they have done the thing again and got us fucking hype already. We're almost, effectively 3 months out from the set releasing.
Yep.
And they've already got us jonesing.
Yeah.
Got us right where they want us.
They got me Googling flights to Prague when I definitely should not be Googling flights to Prague. But if there was ever one event that was not a Worlds or a whatever, right? But if there's ever been a premiere that I just desperately want to go to, it's this.
Yeah, this is very cool. And I've never been to Prague, but I also am making sure that I can go to London in April, because I got this thing to do in there.
Yeah, you qualified. I didn't. And so I'm in that weird spot where I'm if I had to choose between the two, I think I would choose Prague.
Yeah.
Again, it's just because of this set, right? Any other time I would slam dunk say, yeah, London, it's going to be cheaper flights, because there's actually quite a few from Detroit to London. That's a pretty common flight path. more likely to see, you know, friends and so forth from the Flesh and Blood community because it's a pro tour event, and those are usually, you know, bigger, more well attended, etc. But I just really want to play this set, and I want to be at the world premiere, and I want to, because again, now that they're not spoiling everything ahead of time, I also just want to be there and like open new stuff and gush about it.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know?
Yeah, that'd be wild for me to try to do Prague in January, Breathe in February, do baseball in March in Phoenix, do April in London, and then May. There's something about May, but maybe it's whatever. But it'd be a lot of travel in a very short amount of time. But Prague is interesting, and I'm gonna guarantee though, because I live in Iowa, that I've not looked at this, but I'm going to guess that Prague is a let me look here. I'm going to guess as a $1,300 flight, but let's look. That would be January, so we would do like here to here. Oh, huh. How much do you think it is, Charmer?
Well, mine was like 800, so I will say yours is 875.
633.
Oh.
Huh.
So am I driving to you?
That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I think this is...
Are you talking like Spirit, though? Because I was looking at like real airlines.
British Airways.
Oh.
Yeah, you have a layover in Charlotte into a layover at Heathrow.
Yo.
The layover in Charlotte's a little long. The layover in Heathrow is not long.
Okay, wait. I need to gush about this for a moment because I've never felt more important in my entire life. And I understand that this is entirely likely a result of googly shenanigans where they are just manipulating my own search to me, right? Based on relevant results. Like I fully accept that. And I bet if you were to do it right now, you would not have the same results. However, I Googled the words, the hunted fab arachne, because I was trying to find the photo of the 6 things, right? That's what I Googled. And on the first page, right? I'm on page 1, is a link to my Twitter account.
Oh. Well, look at that. Not your Blue Sky account, though.
And it was, of course, me posting about how depressed I was. Because I can't
fucking brand.
Because I can't make this up. But yeah, so
yeah, well, you know.
I just for posterity here, I am just taking a quick screenshot here and sending this to you because I'm sure I will need that later when I need to pick me up. But I've hit my arachne love on a Google search now. So
you are the top result for loving arachne.
Well, not top, but on the first page.
First page.
I'll take first page.
All right, let's hop into listener questions. We're gonna. Okay. Not that I don't like listener questions.
Am I really driving to you?
It can't be worth $240 to drive to Iowa.
Not by itself, but if that means I get to fly with you and spend more time with you, while also saving money.
And then also we could record in a fucking sweet studio.
Yeah. We could also record on the plane, just sitting next to each other, and we'll call it our Mile High episode.
As long as we don't do it in the bathroom, I think I'm okay with it. All right, moving to some listener questions. We only have too many. First one we're going to do for some Josh Scott, though, because whenever Josh asks this question, he's the leadoff hitter.
Yep.
He asks, pro player often gets thrown around as a broad term. What requirements do you think a player needs to meet to be referred to as a pro player in Flesh and Blood?
So I think it's a good question. And I think that everybody's definition varies, which is also why I think we see it thrown around so much. I tend to go back and forth between two standard stock answers. Usually my first like gut reaction go-to answer is just, have you ever made money playing the game? If you've got paid to play the game, you're a pro player, or at least were at one time, right? That very easy for me to just like draw the line, because it doesn't say anything about like you have to make enough to support yourself or whatever, because here in America, you can be a pro sports player, but it might be for like a minor league baseball team where you're making minimum wage. You know what I mean? So to me, it's just, have you ever been paid to play the game? Like, that's step one. The only time that I ever start to waver or whatever is like, you could be theoretically a quote unquote pro player, but never play in a pro tour. And so there is a part of me that thinks like, maybe you have to have played in at least one pro tour to be considered like, I'm not even saying placed, but just like you qualified. And if you've made money in other places, but you've also played in a pro tour, like maybe that's enough. The only reason that I like even hesitate to say that though, is because and the reason that I just kind of have this definition in general is I immediately think that the closest comparison, if you're not talking other TCGs, is like poker, right? And I have personally known a lot of people who just are pro poker players, but like you'll never know them or hear of them because they just make their earnings playing at local casinos or whatever, right? But that's how they support themselves. They make money doing it. And if you ask them, it was like, what do you do for a living? They'd be like, I'm a pro poker player. And, just because they're not, a Phil Hellmuth or whatever, doesn't mean that
they're not
still
on the WSOP circuit constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I would never tell them like, you're not a real pro, because like they're making money doing it. So to me, like usually my go-to is like, have you ever made money playing the game? Then, you are or were a pro.
Yeah, I think so. There's a valley of difference here just because of, if nothing else, longevity. Yeah. So a pro Magic player was often just a person that sustained their living through Magic, whether that, usually was a combination of like team sponsorship, content, and results. Right. And in this case, I think that your definition is probably much better for Flesh and Blood. I would probably put the caveat of at least having played in a level, like a tier 4 or higher event. So a pro tour or an event you qualified for. Let's put it that way.
So Nats, that sort of thing.
But that gets harder because then at like one point in time, like it's funny to say this because you would have a person that finished in second place at a pro tour. We wouldn't consider a pro by that standard because Mara didn't qualify for that pro tour. She bought a PTI for that pro tour. And so, but she was obviously a pro.
And so that's why I said my baseline is like, have you ever made money? Which she definitely has.
Oh, she made money.
But then my second one was, have you ever played in one? And I was very specific about like, did you play and not qualify? Because there's a lot of people that I think do bet on themselves. And I think that's fine too.
That is not saying anything bad about that. I think we're very on record saying fucking bet on yourself. And that's more impressive than anything else to me. But I think that your definition fits well enough, if nothing else.
Yeah. And also I want to be very clear here that just like with anything where you're talking about, professional, there is a spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. Not everybody is Tom Brady. Not everybody even needs to be Tom Brady to be successful, right? Like Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl. So
does Brad Johnson.
I think Trent Dilfer having one is still more impressive.
Than Brad Johnson, I don't know.
Brad Johnson at least attempted to lead that offense like a bit. Trent Dilfer was just trying to not get fired on every play.
Okay, that is very true, honestly.
So anyway. My point is
Jim McMahon has a Super Bowl.
You could be the long snapper on a team and still be a pro, right?
It's a hard fucking job,
right?
Yeah, I mean, my brother was a very, very good long snapper. We're going to take a detour here, and watching like the amount of work he had to put in to be as good as he was, and he was, he snapped spirals.
Yep.
At 15 yards deep. At one point in time, he could put one through a car window if the car was moving. And our punter had to, like, if Ross was snapping, had to be a few like steps back. Otherwise the ball was going to get on him too fast. And so he was able to take a couple more steps into it, and he could kick. So that was pretty incredible. And watching him do it, he would just sit there and snap balls just into a fence for ever. It's over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can tell you straight away that ball did get on you in a hurry when he decided to put some juice in it. But it's a really hard job. If you watch a long snap, you'll notice there's this guy who's usually much smaller than the rest of the linemen on those special teams, and he's the one snapping the ball because he has one fucking job, and it's really important to not fuck up.
Yep.
So you don't care about this guy's other skills. He has one job.
It really is just that one job.
Yeah, if you do anything else, fucking great.
But it's usually fantastic for them though, because like, yes, it's just hyper specialized, but like once you get it in, as long as you don't mess up your one job,
years, yeah.
You will have that job for 15 years. And like, yeah, you won't make superstar money, but like making NFL league minimum and then getting their pension stuff and whatever is still pretty good for like the likely one of the safest, if not the safest, because you don't even as a punter, you might occasionally have people that like run into you. The long snapper, unless they get somebody who's just like an absolute dick, almost never gets touched. So
right. And the workout, like the offseason workout program for a long snapper, is not nearly as in depth as that of, a safety, or even a defensive lineman, or even an offensive lineman, a standard one. So there are some cases where like their normal center is their long snapper, but that's pretty rare anymore. Moving on from football talk, because I don't, whatever. Let's go to Dom. Dom says, with Zen and Blitz following the steps of Ric Flair and coming back from retirement to the disappointment of many, what hero in Fab would Paul Heyman be most likely to manage?
So is this, so this is like Paul Heyman shows up. He very clearly managed Starvo, right? And then Starvo.
No, I don't think so.
No, he very clearly managed Starvo, and then Starvo left because he was involved in the Vince McMahon scandal. And so now, who is Paul Heyman's current Roman Reigns is what you're asking, right? So
I think that Paul Heyman managed Bravo, and then Brother Love managed Bravo Showstopper. Bravo, star of the show, did not have a manager because The Undertaker didn't need a manager. But Mean Mark Callis needed Paul Heyman. And
Undertaker,
the original Undertaker
needed a manager for many years, sir. And don't you dare put Paul Bearer.
No, Paul Bearer is beyond reproach. But it wasn't until he ascended to being the Taker that he didn't need a mouthpiece anymore. But because like even CM Punk was managed by Paul Heyman at one point. And it's, to me, God, who the fuck would Paul Heyman have? I mean, Paul Heyman managed a lot of people.
He likes to take underdeveloped talent that has a lot of potential and then mold them. So my answer is Olympia.
There's no potential. The problem.
I think there's actually. I do think there's potential.
Heyman might manage Betsy.
So I could see Heyman wanting to manage Betsy. I don't think Betsy wants Heyman to manage her.
Maybe not.
It's the same. It's the same answer because I thought like I could see a Victor thing, but then I was like, Victor.
He has no desire to
He has
Heyman.
no desire
He's not
to
a Paul
Heyman.
He's not a Paul Heyman guy.
Right.
But yeah.
Victor is. He's like a cross between Shawn Michaels, like early cocky Shawn Michaels, and
I don't know who you're going with here. Like talking about like cocky ass heels.
Yeah, well, I wasn't even thinking a heel. I guess maybe a good one would be like a heel choice. Because I was thinking
to me he's Lex Luger, like, but
maybe. So I was thinking like I'm stuck on, and maybe it's like a look thing too, because I feel like if you face mashed them, it would be that. I feel like it's the young cocky Shawn Michaels and Gunther, and you just do
that's kind of funny,
Victor.
But I mean, if you talk about Paul Heyman's managerial career, he managed stunning Steve Austin, Mean Mark Callis, which is Undertaker, CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. Like basically, it's just, and then all of ECW. We'll just go ahead and just say all of ECW.
All of ECW. So like RVD is usually the one people remember the most.
But RVD, Tommy
and he also
Dreamer.
do a stint like right when he was like first coming over with like Kurt Angle too.
Angle, I think, was on Team ECW potentially, but I don't know that he was, I mean, part of the alliance or whatever it was, but I don't know that he was managed by him.
I think it was a short stint, but I think that he was. I'd have to Google it.
Oh, well, could.
I'm like a secret, like I love characters that just like they go. I love people that commit to the bit. Like that's the best way to put it. They go all in, and Kurt Angle like is cheesy as all hell, but like you're always getting Kurt Angle with him. So
Kurt Angle's
perfect
at what he does.
I love anybody that's like a Santino, an R-Truth, the Hurricane, like Shane Helms, man, like cracks me up. If you commit
Spike
to a
Dudley.
bit, yeah,
Spike Dudley was a good bit. I loved how they always try to bury Perry Saturn. He would just keep getting over regardless. Like they would try to bury him.
Saturn.
They would try to bury him, and he'd still get over. It was just like, okay. Let's move on because we could just do this forever too. Next one's from Vintox. Chaos is a new talent. What do you think it does?
I think that the Chaos talent is by itself not anything, but I think that it's going to be more like a signifier, and I think Slip Through the Cracks is already kind of it. I think Chaos, both like as a talent and the cards potentially designed around it, are just going to represent like symmetrical effects. So imagine like an entire talent that is Coax a Commotion, and like I'm still okay with that. Like I'm kind of here for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Chaos is, as a talent, will have, obviously there'll be cards that are Chaos talented. I think that much is true. But I also feel like you will have, like, Chaos will do something else. But I really don't have any thought on what it is yet.
I'll tell you what, I've been a long proponent of the Earth Brute on this podcast.
Nope.
However,
absolutely not.
I also do look forward to Chaos Brute.
Okay, Chaos Brute I can give
because scab skins and all the stuff that they already do is like just
pretty chaotic.
Yeah, you're just so like in that alley that now I want something that's like the scab skins that's symmetrical, where it's like I roll it and I get action points, but also you get bonus action points on your turn, right? Like, like let's really liven this up, right? Like,
that's interesting. Next one is from Sephiroth. How much royal payoff are we expecting? Do you think this may make other heroes that wouldn't normally run Crown of Dominion want to run it? And then also, which has more chaos, Charmer or Arachne? We're going to go ahead and answer the second one first. Charmer, not because he wants it, but because that's what the universe gives him.
I was going to say it's situational. I think that Arachne tends to have more chaos. However,
if you stopped traveling,
I usurp him the moment I go on any sort of journey, right?
If you stopped traveling, you'd be golden.
Adult hero Charmer the Sojourner is a chaos talent, right?
Christ.
Young hero Charmer in solitary confinement, no chaos because I'm solitary. But Charmer the Sojourner, totally chaos talented.
Chaos. Okay. Royal payoff, I don't know that you're going to see much. Quite honestly,
I hope that there's a bunch.
I really feel like Royal is going to be one of those things where it's still, you know, you're going to have more of like the Royal effects that you have with the items like Imperial Warhorn and shit like that. You'll get a little bit more of that, but Royal might actually be a tagline for just making it more devastating when Arachne does shit to you, like Regicide.
That's why I was saying I have a Blackout Regicide that's dying to see play again.
Yeah, if there's a lot of Royal running around, it's like, fuck them. let's get them.
Yep.
Can you pummel a Regicide? I'm asking for a friend.
You cannot, but you can Razor Reflex it.
Ooh, we could reflex it. But yeah, I don't think there'll be a ton of payoff in Royal specifically, but I think that Royal will matter. Let's put it that way. Next one's from One Hit Wookie, which is still one of my favorite usernames. With all the new spoilers, this reminds me, I think Arachne is an awesome character, or maybe characters, and the artwork is great, but I really don't like the way assassins play. I felt the same about Florian. Is there any characters or classes you feel this way about, ones you really want to like but don't? Is there any that break the mold and you really enjoy playing despite not liking their class? For me, it's Vincent on the first thing. I love everything about Vincent except for playing Vincent. I just don't enjoy the play pattern. Yikes. It's just not, it's not what I like. And for no other reason than, it just, I always feel like I'm playing from behind. And it just doesn't fit the style of play I want to be doing. But God, I love the aesthetic. I love everything a lot about Vincent otherwise. It's just such a cool everything, but yeah, it just doesn't really do it for me.
For me, it was Dromai.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I actually like built and even tried playing Dromai when that set launched. I just thought that, you know, again, the aesthetic was cool. Like, typically anti-illusionist, but it felt different from Prism. I liked playing dragons. Like, who doesn't like playing dragons? Tomotai was the dream. All of that stuff. And it just, the play pattern wasn't something that, I'm not going to say it didn't click with me. It didn't feel as fulfilling. Right. So yeah, I Dromai, like, and when I look at it, like, art, great, aesthetic great, cool character, sweet dragons. It's just a lot of bookkeeping.
It's true,
especially when you go to the competitive events where you're supposed to actually have like dust under every one and no shortcuts and whatever. It's just like I just want to play the game, man. I don't want to like do accounting. I do that all day, and it is also probably a byproduct of my work, right? But like, I do so much of that kind of stuff for my day job that, like, and I just want to smash things, you know?
Oh, I get it. It's funny because Dromai is my answer to the second question. I enjoy playing Dromai. I fucking hate illusionists. But I also play, if I'm playing Dromai, it's 0 for 4s. We're not fucking around here. We're playing 0 for 4s. And I think that plays so much different than illusionist. It kind of just doesn't even feel like illusionist anymore.
Yeah.
But that's the one, like, I don't like illusionists at all. I have no fun playing illusionist outside of playing Dromai. Is there anything you have that with?
Not really.
I figured like Brute or something. Find enjoyment playing Brute.
I would say like maybe like Chain, right? Like, I really enjoyed playing Chain, but like, of the rune blades, from an aesthetic like / appeal standpoint, if I'm being honest, he is thematically the least attractive rune blade to me. Briar makes sense to me, like that cool mix of, you know, earth and lightning and whatever. Viscerai feels more traditional, the way I imagine like a Spellblade character would, like half martial, half magic. You or Aurora again kind of has that like lightning / storm feel. Like when I just think of Rune Blades, all of the other ones I think have a more attractive aesthetic. And then even when I go to strictly the Shadow ones, I think that Vincett's character design is cooler. I just really enjoyed Chain's play style. So I think that's probably the best answer for me is Chain.
Gotcha. Okay. Moving on, next one's from Geeks First. Seems MTG changed a core combat rule that existed for ages to simplify things. In this case, it was you no longer order blockers for damage. You just get to assign damage however you want to in the damage assignment. So people can't pump a creature to save it. Biggest thing. Do you think Fab may ever do such a thing? If so, what may that be, and why would it even happen? Also says safe travels. I hope all is well with Charmer. So people want to see you better, Derek.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint.
No, you're not. You love to disappoint.
I really don't.
I think you do. But I don't think there's anything to simplify in Fab. Like, honestly, the core of the game is already simple. And I don't know what you do to simplify that outside of get rid of certain things like reactions. But why? Don't do that. Like, those are a very important part of the game.
I think the only like true simplification that's even remotely viable is you just delete illusionists
and wizards. We have to delete wizards too.
I guess.
Please? Okay, thank you.
I don't know. I'm an assassin player who just got all of my cool Widow equipment, so I say bring the wizards on.
Yeah. I'm sick of having to pretend like arcane damage isn't real and can't hurt me, and then it is real and hurts me. Next one's from Clark J. What is Smash Palace? Wrong answers only.
Isn't that the new theme park, the Smash Brothers Melee Palace?
Maybe, I don't know. Like I actually don't
didn't get to go to Osaka, so I didn't get to go to the Super Mario World, but I feel like it's like a wing of Super Mario World.
Google Smash Palace really quick.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so it's a 1981 New Zealand film. A rock band.
All right, wait. It already happened to me once. Let's see if I can Google Smash Palace and then I come up on the first page of
Okay, that'd be pretty funny.
Because that would be funny. Nope, I am not on the first page of results this time.
A New Zealand psychological crime thriller.
Yep, I see that.
I
also see a rock band.
Yes. I would say that because they did Borderline. All right. So I would say a Smash Palace is a group home for plastic surgery disasters.
Maybe. When I was in Italy and we went to Palatine Hill, I don't know why I pronounced it that way just now. I learned that that's like where the word palace and palatial and all that comes from.
Well, congrats.
So I'm going to say that a Smash Palace is the marble debris that is near the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill.
Good enough. Next one's from Sergeant Snipes. What's the chances of a legendary being Empress Dromai? I would say low. I would say if there's an Empress Dromai is just a hero in the set. We've only had one hero thus far, or two heroes thus far, be legendaries, right? We've had the Emperor and Shiana. But the Emperor was in a supplemental set, and so was Shiana.
Right.
So I don't think that that's this.
Yeah, I think the next style will be Valda. that's
as in
the mastery stuff is the only supplemental sets we are going to get anymore, right? Like I thought we aren't getting true supplementals anymore.
Armory decks and then like the mastery packs. Yep, that's it. Which I think is fine. I do miss, we had this conversation with Doa where or at least I did, where we were talking about missing supplemental sets, and I kind of do. Because they were a good on-ramp for kind of fixing things in large doses. And I don't love the expansion slot. And the losing supplemental sets kind of also just got rid of the expansion, or sorry, getting expansion slots got rid of supplemental sets, or was a contributor to that. So yeah, that's just my take. Next one's from Zaris. Here's an idea. I'm toying with building Ira because I'm going to be able to get one this weekend, and I'm forever an aggro player. Well, that's not the same thing. I was wondering, is it a good idea to run Pummel? She has a few cards that cost 2 or more, and the threat of Kadachi for 1 and CNC for 11 seems insane. Am I wrong? Explain it like I'm 5. I've played Pummel Ira. That isn't new. And yeah, if you go back to that list, there were a ton of 2-cost attacks.
Yep.
Like
2 erase face, 2 weakest
pummel.
link, 3 CNCs.
Yep. Plenty to pummel. The problem we run into is it's a very dead red in your hand that doesn't block 3 and doesn't pitch to Kadachi.
Yep.
So
I'm never going to tell anyone to not run Pummel because it's my favorite card in the game. But it's just particularly clunky because it doesn't do other things for you. So when you run it in Guardian, for example, you usually are only taking the 1 action anyway. So it's a very easy thing to pay for with the extra cards. There's also some math that works in your favor, whether you're running Tectonic Plating or Tunic, right? The old one blue plus Tunic for CNC and Pummel. And yes, you can do that with Ira potentially as well. But the big difference is that Pummel in a pinch can also be used on things like Anothos, and it cannot be used on your daggers.
Right.
And that's super relevant because when you're playing Bravo against unexperienced players, one of the ways you can steal wins is send the Anothos for 4. And then if they low block you, you pitch your second card and play the Pummel. And now it goes from 4 to 10 and you catch them completely off guard. So the fact that you just have far less versatility with the card in Ira and you're already getting the +1 for free anyway means that you're usually better served by just sticking to your ultra consistent game plan.
Yeah, the way that I would teach people Flesh and Blood with Ira decks is I would give them any deck, right? And I would just play Ira. And I would do the thing with Ira over and over and over again. And they'd be able to do something splashy, every few turns. And I'd be like, great, block 9 with these 3 cards. Good. Kadachi for 1. Kadachi for 2. Play the thing out of my arsenal. You had to block it. Cool. Moving on. And always the lesson was, great. Now build something that beats this. Figure out a thing and a way to break the consistency. Because if you can do that, you have a deck. And that was always the deck challenge, the deck building challenge for new people. It's beat Ira. On a consistent basis, beat this deck. And that's Ira's entire calling card is it's just consistent.
Yep.
And anything that breaks the consistency of Ira kind of feels bad. You just want to keep doing the thing, which is Kadachi playing. The turn cycle is 2 Kadachis plus a thing. Block 6, 2 Kadachis plus a thing. Block 7, maybe 2 Kadachis plus a thing. And on and on and on and on and on. And sometimes it's 1 Kadachi plus a thing. Great. It's still 2 card hands that do way too fucking much. Is what it boils down to. It's just 2 card 8s is your average. So your baseline for Ira is 4 per card.
Yep.
Serve is 3 per card. You're doing good on rate at your 3.5, and Ira is just sitting at 4 the entire time. That's Ira.
Yep, that's literally the entire story.
Not much else to say about it. Moving to our last question, we actually did get through those way faster than I thought.
Yeah, I tried to tell you.
We're still over 2 hours. Don't get me wrong. But
like always, you doubted me.
Why so? Okay, that's not true. I rarely doubt you.
From Pox Honest.
Go on. You're going to start reading. You can finish it.
Which American politician is probably a Fab player, and what's their hero of choice? I feel like Bernie plays a mean Kano.
Do you have an answer for this one?
I mean, of course I do, but I wanted to hear you first. I read the question, so.
I think that Lindsey Graham is a Prism player.
That makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready for mine?
I'm more than ready for yours.
All right. I think that Glenn Jacobs plays
Kane?
Reinar.
So you think the wrestler known as Kane,
Yep.
the heavily Mogite Republican mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee,
Yep.
is a Reinar player?
Yes.
Lay it on me.
Too stupid to have a real strategy. Wants to come to every event and proudly proclaim that he's a Reinar, not a Rhino, like these unpatriotic folks unwilling to stand up for real American values.
Please tell me that you put more than 5 minutes of thought into this.
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. Because otherwise, if that's like even remotely off the top, I
put in a solid 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay, that's acceptable. It's still pretty impressive, but it's sub 5 minutes would be incredible on that one. My God. Yeah. Rolling up into an event. I play Reinar because I'm not a Rhino. It sounds like something that
Glenn Jacobs would do. Absolutely.
Glenn Jacobs would say. Yeah.
And here's the thing. He's going to be doing that, and he's going to try to get Undertaker to play, and he's going to roll his eyes the same way that if you've ever seen him in any discussions where they talk about like video games, he looks like he's allergic to them. So like I just imagine, Kane trying to teach Taker how to play Fab, and he's got none of it. He's not having it.
Yeah, Mark Calloway has zero tolerance for anything that isn't like beer drinking, riding a motorcycle, or getting tattoos, I guess.
And football.
He does love football.
He does love football.
That's true. 212. That's not that bad. I guess we should probably thank some patrons before we get out of here, though. Yeah. All right. Well, we have our associate producers. We have Andy Sindra, the newest hero in Flesh and Blood, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive producers on up. We have Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon, Dom Let's Good Thrust, Matt Two Tokes, Pox Honest, Vintox, almost to 3 years, still hasn't changed that bullshit. Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If you would like to become a member of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There are, I don't know, like 6 tiers, 5 tiers, some bullshit. Pick a paid one. You can get an After Dark. We'll do one of those soon. We'll be trying to get that in before Thanksgiving. We know there's a lot of travel, people being in Osaka, Charmer being in Italy and almost dying. So it's been kind of hard to get to gather the children around, but we'll get some time around the campfire for everybody here soon. So any paid member of the Patreon is more than welcome to come and join us in there. It's a good time. It's just a raucous good time. If you need to send us a message or anything like that, or contact us, you can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Blue Sky. Just search Flesh and Pod. It's easy. We're right there. If you show up, you might get hit up by Marcy and told that here is the Flesh and Blood content creator starter pack. We're in that too. So if you just hit the follow all button on that thing, you'll get us. You can also find us on Twitter for the time being at FleshPod. That might change. Don't know. A biggest thing is if you are on the YouTubes, or if you are listening to this and haven't gone to the YouTubes, go to the YouTubes, search for us, and please like and subscribe. That way we can potentially, not sit in the doldrums of, less subscribers than viewers. I still don't understand that, but whatever. And if Derek, where can I find you?
They can find me now that you've given me time to actually think about it. So we're beyond the 6-minute mark. They can find me deciding that AOC is actually really hip and cool. She played Dromai, but is waiting for the new version to come out. And plus, with the election cycle coming up, she had to step away from the game anyway, but she's really excited for the new sets. Matt Gates is a strong Shiana and Volda player, right? But he plays them even in Classic Constructed. And when you ask him, he says, listen, I only play the young ladies.
Young ones. Yep.
And Tommy Tuberville sits down to play Blood Bowl, but he thinks that's what you mean when he's, doing Flesh and Blood. And he's just like really into football, but he keeps confusing the two, just the way he confuses everything in his life. I'm sure I got more, but I need more. Like I'm at like the 9-minute mark. So maybe I'll have some good answers later.
Which one is the Briar playing hippie?
The Briar playing hippie is 100% Elizabeth Warren.
There it is. All right. Where can they find you?
I'm on that Blue Sky thing now. I mean, I was before. It was cool, but I'm still there now as well. And I haven't posted a lot. I haven't just been active in social media in general. And it's weird because like I miss it.
Do you?
I do, because it was one of the ways that I could continue to interact with our really cool community during like the times in between events and whatever. But it was kind of nice to just take a break, both between the vacation and then the deathly illness. So I'll be more active again soon if you miss me, than just like tag me and stuff, and then I'll be more likely to respond. But I'm really just saying like I'm still getting back into my normal rhythm of things, both in terms of content creation, but also like social interaction. So yeah, I'm there. I'm here. Same thing. Like I haven't been active in our Discord or my own like Ice Cave Discord. It's just a lot of those habits and routines I'm still trying to get back into the rhythm of. So yeah, tag me.
Yeah, there you go.
Just remember it's at Jordan.
Yes, I'm German.
Yeah, I'm German.
If you need me, find me in our Discord, links in the show notes. Just anybody can join, or you can search for me on social media. It's just my name. This is Logan Peterson, all one word. There's no O's in the name outside of the first. There's only one O total.
John Fetterman plays Riptide. Both because he's similar in stature, but also because he laid the trap of making people think he was actually a progressive, and then he went and supported genocide.
Good enough. That'll be a fun one for Jeff O to comment on later. But what? Not wrong. But at any rate, love you, Jeff O. So everybody, thank you again for listening. 154 next week, and then we'll be coming up on 156 real soon. We're gonna have to figure something out. We should do something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll record the show like we have for the 155 fucking weeks prior to that.
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle, but that's just pain. Thank you again for listening, everybody, though, and we'll see you next week for 154. Bye.